Hello and welcome to another That's Just Wild Q&A, where we take on your burning questions about nature and wildlife. I'm Steve Backshall, and as always, I'm joined by...
Me, Lizzie Daly.
And me, Sarah Roberts.
Now, the first question today is for you, Steve, and it comes from Samantha. Thanks for inspiring my 11-year-old son, Miles, to become a marine biologist. He attended his first shark protest when he was 1 against shark nets here in Australia. What are your thoughts on shark nets?
Amazing that he could have been so well versed in shark nets at the age of 1. I mean, seriously, at the age of 1, mine was still smearing poo all over their faces. Probably shouldn't say that. So first off, let's start with what shark nets are and what they are not. What they are is a net that usually drops down about 6 metres in the water. It extends up to about 180 metres and will be used to partially, but not completely, block off a bay that may well be used for swimming. They tend to be used in areas where there are incidences of shark-human interaction, and particularly of species like bull, tiger and great white, all of which occur in Australian waters and all of which have caused fatalities in Australia. So, everything I'm going to say now, and I'm sure you guys are going to have opinions on this too, but is couched by the fact that I don't live in Australia. My kids don't swim in Australian waters. Therefore, all I'm saying now doesn't have that emotive, empathetic sense behind it of how would I feel if my kids were swimming in waters where there are known to be sharks. Would I want everything possible done to try and make sure that they were going to be safe? Of course I would. But shark nets don't work. And here are the reasons. First of all, they only cover a very, very small portion of the beach. You know, we were filming in Sydney at the beginning of this year. We were filming with sharks, with sharks that are there in abundance in beaches south of Bondi, places like Maroubra, Glamorama, Coogee, and there are nets there, and they stretch for a tiny portion of the beach, and they do not go all the way from the surface down to the bottom. Around about 40% of sharks that are found entangled in shark nets are found on the beach side. That is, they've swum in, they've gone around or under the net, they've gone into the beach, they've had a little mosey around, and on the way back out again, they've got caught in the net. In addition, some studies have shown that as much as 90% of the animals that are caught in shark nets are not the target species. They are not sharks that can be dangerous to humans, and they are things like turtles and dolphins and some critically endangered marine creatures caught in these shark nets. So they are not an effective deterrent. The other big problem is the false sense of security that they give. So people will rock up to a beach thinking, well, there's shark nets, so we're completely safe. And then they will disobey all the rules that you need to know if you're swimming somewhere where there are sharks. So they'll swim at dusk and dawn when you shouldn't be swimming if there are sharks around. They'll swim when the water has really bad visibility, when there's been really heavy rains and there's runoff in the water. They give people a sense that it's safe to swim when it might not be. What is much more effective is to be, have shark sense. So to know when it's safe and not safe to swim around sharks, to have really good vigilance, shark spotting drones, planes, towers, and to listen to, all the information that's out there. But the nets themselves are terrible for marine life, and they do not prevent shark attacks. I mean, what do you guys think?
I think you summed it up perfectly, to be honest. It's a bit of an odd one because we see it time and time again, don't we, in conservation. Political drive, there's public pressure, and even in the face of a lack of long-term data on the effectiveness of these nets, they're still persistent. And for some, perhaps it does act as a bit of a safety blanket. Speaking to your point, Steve, about having that awareness of places, it might encourage more people to go down into the water. But the reality is they just don't work. And, I think a lot of people also think that, as you say, they're in one area, they're now enclosed in a net, and then therefore it's completely safe. But actually what it ends up doing is killing sharks and a lot of other species as well. So, yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys saw, but I know the Queensland government's just given 88 million to put in new shark nets, drum lines, baited drum lines, and other deterrents. So it's quite topical right now. Everything that you said, I agree with, Steve. I know that there's been ongoing experiments, even since the days when I worked in shark research, of creating alternative nets using magnets. But yeah, generally speaking, I think the net situation and the baited drum lines, for anyone that doesn't know, a baited drum line is where you've got bait dangling from a buoy just offshore, often where there are swimmers around and surfers. And then anything that's over the size, I think 3 meters, then will be dispatched of if it comes and eats that bait and gets hooked. So just purely on how long it takes a shark to reach reproductive age and how big they have to get and how slow it is for them to replace themselves in the food chain. When you talk about great whites or tiger sharks or bull sharks or any of those larger species, I think it's something we could really do with having a much bigger conversation around, really.
I need to finish this off with a shout out to Jessica Lane, who is the current Miss Earth. She is a beauty queen for the planet. And this is what she has made her life's work, is campaigning against shark nets in Australia. She is utterly inspiring. And Jess, massive shout out to you and big love for all you do.
Amazing.
Love that. Yeah, I was going to ask, because I've seen quite a lot on the drone surveillances and the aerial patrols as well for kind of that real-time shark spotting. I was going to ask if either of you know much about that and how effective it is.
Yeah, so when I was out in Australia earlier this year, we were over on the other coast and we were on a beach not far from Perth, and the whole beach was evacuated because a drone had spotted a bronze whaler in close to shore, and the amount of time that it was inshore was monitored to the minute, and people were in and out of the sea dependent on the live updates from that drone. So, you know, it's impossible to cover the entirety of the coast of a nation the size of Australia, but it all helps. And, you know, helicopters as well, all these things are a much more accurate way of doing this, because you can look down and you can go, oh, do you know what? You know, that's a whale shark. It's clearly not going to be of any danger to anyone. Or that is a great white and it's coming in towards a beach where there's lots of people surfing. Let's get everyone out of the water. And that's so much more effective than sticking in a net that, you know, it's just not going to help people, but it's going to make people think they're safe.
Well said.
Now, for you, Sarah, from Sam in Lancashire, are orca really dolphins?
You know what? This is a question I think that comes up quite a lot.
No. Marine biologist Lizzie Daly says no.
No, I think generally the orca are the largest of the dolphin species. I think the misconception is all dolphins are whales, but not all whales are dolphins. So they are still kind of whales too, aren't they? Because they've come down from cetaceans and they're on. Oh, I'm going to stuff this up, Steve. Give me the Latin. Help me out here. But they've come from that group, haven't they? Odontoceti? Please help.
Yes. Yeah. No. You got it. You got it slowly, but you got it. So yeah. They're in the toothed whales. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And for me, actually, like I kind of come to accept that orca are dolphins, because I know dolphins are a lot more brutal than maybe people quite. We think, oh, orcas, they're massive, they're killer whales, they're these crazy hunters, but dolphins are really aggressive too. I spent a lot of time in Ceredigion, sat on the walls there, looking at dolphins and identifying them by the bite marks or bits of fins that are missing from them where they've been scrapping with other dolphins. But I think...
They are absolutely dolphins, by the way. I just want to preface that. I did say no because
massive backtrack from Daly.
No, because
it was the Latin, wasn't it? You heard the Latin and she backtracked.
No, listen. In terms of their order, they're in the cetaceans. They're in the family Delphinidae. They are the largest species of dolphin, as you said.
But then also within the family Delphinidae, you have lots of very big dolphin species. You know, rissos are huge. A bottlenose dolphin off the coast of Scotland.
The UK ones are massive.
Could be 3.5, nearly 4 meters in length. They are epic. And I think that actually, well, if you look taxonomically within the group, you know, nerding out like crazy, the orca is possibly one of the most basal members of the group. The others may well have descended from a common ancestor that was more like an orca than a modern day white-sided or common dolphin. So I think they're almost in some ways the ultimate dolphin. They are the ultimate epic
mega
murder
dolphin.
panda.
Do you know what I thought? I found more shocking, though. It wasn't that orcas and dolphins are the same. For me, I actually find it more shocking that porpoises aren't dolphins, because they're so similar looking, almost look like kind of dwarf dolphins, don't they? But they have a much stubbier face. Is it just that it comes down to the teeth, Steve, that they have
It's
the
the
spade
teeth shape, and it's it's how the blowhole is orientated as well, that puts them in a completely different group. Yeah.
By the way, that's in Wales, I'm guessing, Ceredigion in Wales.
Cardigan Bay, yeah.
There's an incredible behaviour there. Funnily enough, this is the kind of fan mail I get. Steve, hold your horses. I know you get thousands, but I got an email yesterday from somebody sending me pictures of porpoiside, because we were talking about it on the weekend. And it's the most cool thing where bottlenose dolphin literally launch porpoise, these harbour porpoise through the air.
You think that's cool? It's blooming awful. They're sadistic. And you're saying that
so
orca
cool.
and dolphin aren't related? They just kill the porpoises by lobbing them. Yeah.
It is amazing though. It looks like they're playing volleyball with them, and they toss them like 30 metres up into the air. It is pretty cool.
The more shocking thing though is that the dolphins, we don't really know why they do it, but there's also that line of thought that they're practicing infanticide, because they also do infanticide, right? They'll kill other young dolphins the same way.
It sounds like we're properly demonising dolphins here today.
I think that when you compare them to sharks, though, like we give them such a lovey-dovey reputation, but actually
they've got the best marketing team in the world, haven't they?
PR is strong.
But even within Orca, I mean, we've talked about this before and just how sophisticated Orca are. But the difference in the ecotypes globally in orca populations, it just stuns me that we haven't fully kind of subcategorized them as their kind of own subspecies. And ecotypes pretty much describes exactly that, their differences in their diet or their hunting strategies. But I don't know, as an animal, the orca reigns as just the uber epic of all the dolphins, for sure.
I reckon we are going to end up doing a pod on that, because I think that's coming. It's coming really, really soon. There's a lot of taxonomists who are already saying the different groups, like you say, ecotypes of orca already should now be classified as different species. They probably haven't interbred for tens of thousands of years. I think that's coming. I think that, it could easily happen this year. If it does, we're going to be there. We'll be there at the cutting edge.
I've just categorised all of them as don't trust any of them.
Not to be trusted. Love it. Oh, nice one.
My question is for you, Lizzie, actually, and it's from Smitchell Science on Instagram. What animals have the most toxic, you'll know about this, the most toxic, unhealthy relationships as partners?
Oh my gosh. What? Well, Lizzie, what are we not hearing about your relationship history?
Lizzie and I have swapped many notes over the years, haven't we?
You're about to say you've swapped many partners over the years.
Oh gosh, no. No, that would be a toxic trait.
This is taking a toxic turn, guys. I feel like at this point in the podcast, we should insert the Britney Spears song. Steve, this is a reference that you'd make. Yeah. I think this is a really interesting topic. So I had a good think about this, and I've actually chosen, it's got to be, the anglerfish. It seems like an obvious pick, but it must be one of the most toxic relationships in the animal kingdom, and that's because some species of anglerfish, particularly in the suborder Ceratiidae, I've totally messed that up, but there's specific species of anglers that actually have evolved this really strange form of kind of mating strategy. It's called sexual parasitism. If you imagine deep in the dark abyss of the ocean, it's quite difficult. And so this strategy seems to have evolved as a way of essentially securing that reproductive access. And so what happens is tiny kind of male anglerfish will be swimming along, and they are literally 60 times smaller than the females. It's this huge kind of sexual dimorphism, that big size difference between males and females. They'll bite onto the female, and everything then in their body will start to fuse with that female. Their tissues start to fuse, their circulatory system starts to fuse. And they basically spend their lives just being these kind of sperm packets attached to the females. And imagine if you had that in the human world. I feel like that would be pretty toxic.
I think
There's
some
so much
people do
anger
have
here,
that
Lizzie.
in the human world.
It's not anger. It's not anger. If anything, I'm trying to dismantle the toxic relationships. Steve, tell us the secret. What is the secret to a healthy 10-year marriage? Go on, get Helen in.
So I have to say, actually, there's a wonderful book on this subject called The Myth of Monogamy, Fidelity and Infidelity in Animals and Humans by a guy called David Barash. It's quite old now, but
I feel like I need to give you a spade
amazing.
before you carry on. Is Helen listening to this?
Well, no, because the intriguing thing is that we paint a picture quite often about the natural world, about animals who mate for life. You know, we go on about it endlessly. Albatross mate for life, swans mate for life. And in actual fact, almost all of the species we think of as doing that don't. There are some absolute horror shows, a lot of which we have in our garden. You know, wrens, where the male goes out and builds dozens of nests and then gets a whole bunch of different partners and then just leaves them to it. House sparrows, where the female, if she sees that her male partner has cheated on her, she seeks out the nest of the other females and kills their chicks. How about that? Pretty
I love
full on.
that.
But
Wow.
the last and intriguing angle you have to add to this is that we as human beings have infidelity as a part of our social structure to a degree that we cannot contemplate. At least 1 in 25 human fathers is raising a child that is not theirs and they're not aware of it.
Stop. 1 in 25.
It's a massive, massive part of human culture. It's a massive part of every primate culture. There are so many animals that cheat on their partners, that have come up with elaborate strategies to get away with it, to trick the other animal into not knowing they're doing it, both males and females. And there are obvious evolutionary advantages to doing it. You know, the kind of the out there end of it is the cuckoo that basically gets a complete other pair of birds to raise their youngsters, and it kind of it's all targeting the same thing, basically laziness, getting somebody else to further your genes.
I can help Steve out here because I actually listened to a really good podcast on this topic, and I reckon maybe a question we actually should tackle in more depth, because there's evolutionary advantages for monogamy, right, in terms of raising the young. So it's complex.
Final questions for you, Steve. Really nice one. What book changed your life?
I love this question. It's one that you could have many, many different answers to. But a couple of them were from the period in the 1990s when I was, for want of a better word, trying to find myself and what my purpose in life was going to be and what I was going to do. I was spending a lot of time traveling on my own, so months and months and months where I'd be in far-flung places and I'd have nothing to do other than read. And quite often, you know, you rock up in like a traveller's hostel or something and you basically can take what's on the shelves. So I end up reading a lot of stuff that I wouldn't have normally. One of those was Alfred Russel Wallace's The Malay Archipelago, which remains my favourite book now to date. The other, though, is this, Climbing Mountain Probable by Richard Dawkins. And this is the actual one, which I found in a traveller's hostel in the mid to late 1990s. And it's not his best book, but it was the first one of his that I read. And in it, he explains how complex organisms such as the eye evolved. So, you know, there's so many ways that creationists and people who believe in intelligent design will take complex structures like the eye as evidence that evolution couldn't be possible, that down the line there must have been the hand of some benevolent creator steering things in one certain direction. And Dawkins says no, and he takes the evolution of the eye from simple dark spots on an ancient nematode worm that could sense light and heat and therefore be able to move towards it, to bring that into a sort of divot with many of those structures so that you could see which direction it was coming from. And he takes it in infinite detail through every single part of the process. And reading this book was the light bulb going off in my head to me. All of a sudden, up to that point, I'd known a lot about animals. I'd been really interested in animals, but I hadn't thought about the big picture, about why, about where it all comes from and putting it into its place. And this book did that for me. And it changed me in the case of the course of reading that book to go from someone who kind of knew stuff about animals to wanting to become, like you guys, an academic. And I
That's
had a
cool.
massive life change from reading that book. What about you guys? Are there any to spring to mind?
Oh, I mean, it's an easy one for me, isn't it? Probably the first kids' book I ever wrote, Somebody Swallowed Stanley. That changed my life. It's got me dragged all around the world every year, that one. So I take it more literally. But I mean, for in terms of deeper topics and deeper stories, I don't want to say because you'll all cringe at me, actually, if I say the one that
No,
actually
go on.
did.
Is it the Bible?
Basically, yeah. It's the Secret. It's called, which is worse than it's a book on manifesting, which I have like two brains on, like a science brain and another brain. But I am a big Derren Brown fan, and I do believe a lot in subliminal messaging. And so for me, it was it opened me up to doing things. I'm one of those people that makes vision boards. But actually, I've found that they do work with me quite well. So yeah, two random, completely unrelated to nature books.
Are we on your vision board, Sarah?
Yes, every day I look at a picture of you and Steve and I, and we're just having a great old time. Yeah, that's it.
Mine was, I guess, less kind of big in terms of how it changed my career, but it had an impact on me just because I've always wanted to work with elephants, and one of my early influences was Joyce Poole, who actually founded Elephant Voices, and she wrote a book called Coming of Age with Elephants, and I read that when I was quite young, and it just talks about her career as a woman in that space. She'd go off and just spend weeks and months just in the field observing elephants, and as a result created some of the most detailed, comprehensive behavioral and audio observations and catalogues of elephants across Kenya. So big up to Joyce Poole, because she was a big influence to me, and that book was like, that was what I want to do. I want to be like Joyce. So yeah,
very nice.
Steve, if you've not already got it, you must get The Explorer by Katherine Rundell for your kids. I honestly, you'll love it. I won't put any spoilers out, but it's a chapter book and you should read it with them. I have not got kids, and I've read the whole book and I adore it, and I've bought every one of my godkids it so that they can have it as they grow up. But I won't. Can I also have a
shout out to Sarah for choosing her own book in this category? Kind of like when those musicians come onto Desert Island Disc and play all their own songs.
Well, I mean, it changed my life. You asked me which one changed my life. That one.
Who's the publisher, Sarah? Where can our viewers buy this?
Do you know what? Actually, it was self-published for the first 8 years. For the first 8 years, nobody would touch it because they said plastic pollution was too scary for kids. So there you go.
Read on CBeebies Question Time by Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy.
Come on. See, that is a flex.
That's the only part of my career that my friends that are girls take any interest in.
Not the fact that you're doing this with me.
Oh yeah, no, sorry, you've replaced Tom immediately now. Yeah, obviously, but for the last few years. Moving on.
The flood of questions is just starting to come in, and they're genius. We thrive off your curiosity, so we're going to do a super fast, quick fire round. You ready for this, you both?
Yeah, ready. Let's go.
Okay, first off, Sarah, how big is a blue whale's sperm?
Smaller than humans, would you believe? It is the smallest sperm from any mammal on the planet, and that is to do with the vast size of the female reproductive tract. So apparently the smaller the sperm, the further they can travel. They make 20 litres of it. Next.
Lizzie, what sea creature is most impacted by climate change?
Oh, really good question. I cheated a little bit. Well, I haven't. I picked our Antarctic krill just because they, like some of our bigger ecosystems, like coral reefs as well, they form the foundation for so much other life. So Antarctic krill is my answer.
For me, yo, Steve, what up, brah? How are shells made like the little ones on the beach? Well, simple organisms will get a hold of calcium carbonate from the sea, and then they change that to make it into their shells. Sarah, we are Madeline and Amelia, and we are identical twins. Are there many sea animals who give birth to twins?
Yes. Seals, sharks, whales, sea otters, penguins. And there was once a whale that was Siamese twins. I don't think they survived, but they washed up on the beach. That was a grey whale. So yes, twins happen as well in other species.
Lizzie from Lawson, what's the difference between rhino horn and elephant tusk?
Really good question. Rhino horns are made up of keratin, same as your fingernails and your hair, and then elephant tusks are essentially massive modified incisors. So completely different in both composition and function as well.
For me, from Zach, is it true that dolphins can switch off half their brain? Yes, absolutely. It's called unihemispheric slow wave sleep.
Woo.
Sarah, I'm Harry, I'm 4. Why do sharks jump out of the water?
We don't know is the simple answer. Many reasons, possibly to get rid of parasites, possibly to communicate, maybe to attract a mate, maybe just because they love jumping. And obviously the one that we all know is the great white that does it to eat. It's one of a few sharks that will catch seals at the surface. So just immense speed.
Yeah, and Lizzie, I have one here that simply says, call me, and then has a phone number.
It's probably my
I
mum.
won't read out the phone number. And the next one for me, are you free to play touch rugby Tuesday night? We're one short, question mark.
Hey, I'm the Welshie on the call. Why not ask me?
That's true. That's true. They didn't ask you. They asked me.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. Right, that's it for this week. Please, as ever, send your questions along to questions@that'sjustwild.com and we will answer them on the show.
Now, we are just a little furry kitten of a show, so any support is really welcome. You can follow us on your favourite podcast app, leave us a review, it makes all the difference to the whole team.
And for ad-free listening, our newsletter, special deep dive episodes and members-only benefits, you can subscribe to us at that'sjustwild.com. Remember, we're on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, the moon, and you can find us at That's Just Wild Pod. Thanks for listening. See you next week.